Today we're gonna try to get this head off. And that airplane's super loud. Alright, today we're gonna pull the head on the 96 Accord. We're gonna have to remove the hose, the power steering, and the distributor. There's all kinds of shit we gotta remove. So let's get started. Alright, let's start pulling the distributor. There's normally 3 bolts on the distributor, but there's only 2, so it's whatever. Let's go ahead and disconnect this battery. Probably should have been the first thing I did. Alright, now I got more room. Look at that garbage. Somebody poured chocolate milk into the engine. I guess we're going to start removing all these little sensors that are attached to the head, plus the hose right there. That hose, these sensors. Time for the hose connected to the thermostat housing. Need to disconnect all this. Get this throttle cable off. It's kind of a pain in the ass where the bracket sits. One thing I'm going to do though when I get the intake off is clean out the EGR passages. One thing I noticed, there's no ground on the thermostat housing. That's pretty weird. Alright, let's switch it up and get the exhaust cover off and try to pull the exhaust manifold. I need a lift. Being bent over like this is making my back hurt. Alright. Alright, now we're going to get this exhaust manifold off and try to drop it down. And then I guess we'll move over to the power steering bracket. I feel like this has been taken apart before because these nuts were way too easy to come off. There's also a bolt that goes into a bracket that's mounted to the block. Well, that bolt is missing. There's probably a bolt or something up underneath that I'm going to have to get to pull the manifold off. But we're not going to deal with that right now. We're going to move on to the power steering pump. Alright, let's loosen the tensioner. And that's the wrong size. Let's go ahead and get the pressure line off. This thing will probably leak, of course. Alright, we got that off. I'm going to try to put all the screws and bolts back where they belong. Yeah, so there's a bolt here, and then there's a bolt down here, so I'm gonna have to remove the alternator to get to that, which really fucking sucks. I mean, it's nicer when the alternator's up front just because you have better access to it when it needs to be replaced, but when they're on the back of the engine, they're out of the way. Alright, so we got this bolt right here, and then there's a tensioner that goes underneath it. So I'm going to loosen this, and then I'm going to do the tensioner, and we should be able to pull the belt off and then pull the alternator out. And we'll have to take the alternator bracket off. I wish they would have designed this a little bit better. Maybe make this bottom bolt part of, or bolt into the block instead of the head. That's a long one. That's what she said. Holy hell. That was a pain in the ass. None of these bolts on the alternator bracket are tight. There's a 10mm on the side that holds the dipstick up. Alright, there's just 3 bolts on the bracket. I'm going to go ahead and stop it just due to it's boring to watch and I don't want to edit this out. Alright, so I pulled the fuel injectors, the timing cover. I got the brackets off of the power steering and the alternator. The more I look at this, the more I think they've replaced the head gasket before, because it looks like a Felpro head gasket. It's blue, so, and just some of the bolts and stuff aren't as tight as they should be. I don't know. I feel like the head gasket's been replaced before. They did a shit job. They probably didn't resurface the head, and so it's leaking again. That's my guess. I would probably be correct in that assumption, but who knows. I'm gonna cut the timing belt and finish getting all the vacuum hoses and shit off of the intake manifold. Make sure everything's off of it, and then start unbolting the head studs. Oh yeah, another thing I noticed, in the fuel injectors they have these little metal clips that holds them on there. One of them doesn't have it. It doesn't have the metal clip, so we'll have to go to the junkyard and get a new one of those. This thing is a lot like the Prelude. It's very similar. I know the F and H series are, they pretty much, it's a direct swap. I'm gonna go ahead and start removing the head bolts. I feel like these head bolts are actually pretty new. So the bracket underneath it had been cut off, but once I removed it, because I had these nuts, it gave me enough room to pull the manifold forward and then drop it. The head is loose and just sitting there. There's a couple more connectors that need to be removed, but I mean, we're almost there. So on most cars, the thermostat housing is bolted to the block. I think this is bolted to the intake manifold, and so the water pipe that goes along the backside is still connected. So I need to disconnect the thermostat housing, and I think we should be good. And that should do it. I know I got a couple other electrical connectors. The idle air control valve is still connected. The brake booster hose is still connected. Alright, so there is like a wiring harness that runs across the underneath side of the intake manifold, and it's bolted to the bottom of it. So I have concluded that all they did was lift this up and stuff a head gasket in there because they couldn't get the head off. Because if they did, they would have disconnected that wiring harness and never would have put it back on. Talk about some half-ass shady work. So more than likely the head is warped. They stuffed a head gasket in there thinking it was going to fix the problem. It didn't. So then they sold it. I mean, if you can't do the job right the first time, don't do it at all. I'm going to go ahead and end this video right here. And we'll pick back up where we left off in the next video, where we finish removing the head and get the intake manifold off. So please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you all in the next video.